So good morning, I'm Lexi, and this is our Mattel product presentation. Before we get started, I was just wondering if any of you have young children or maybe have a niece or nephew. I know I do. I have two step siblings, age 11, they're twins, and I know that they're very addicted to their devices. They love their iPads. In fact, just this past week, when I was home for Thanksgiving break, I hadn't seen them in months. I thought they'd be so excited to see me, and they were just on their devices basically the whole week, even on Thanksgiving, which got me wondering if this is how they are on like a holiday, how would they be on just a regular school day or a regular day? How can they ever focus on anything else? So I want you to keep in mind this addiction to technology that the younger generation is facing as we continue on with our presentation. So the agenda, how this is gonna work is I'm gonna talk briefly about the overview of Mattel and the industry, where we stand, how it relates to our strategy. Then Kishi will come in with our strategy, then I will come back, talk about the game a little bit that we're proposing, the details of that, and then talk a little bit about the education industry, how it pertains to our game, and then Ansley and Connor will take over with the rest of the education industry. After that, Ansley and Annie will talk about the marketing of our product, and then finally Kishi and Annie will talk about the finance of it. So a brief overview. Right now, our strategy has always been creating experiences and entertainment for kids through physical means, so physical toys, physical games, physical products, and that has always worked for us in the past, but recently we've seen a revenue loss of 10.38% year over year in September. So we are actually losing revenue, which shows that this strategy is not working as well as it used to. We are also fourth in the industry, meaning we're behind all the larger brand names, so Lego, Bandai Namco, and Hasbro at the moment. And with this increasing digitized age, we can see that a lot of the industry has now become digitized. So I was wondering how much of the industry you think is digital. Is it A, 32%, B, 15.2%, C, 60%, or D, 44.1%?
I think it's A.
Okay, 32%. So it's actually 44.1% of the industry, so that's almost half of the toy industry that's now digitized, which is a large chunk that we aim to expand into and gain profit off of. While we have begun to step our foot into the digitized industry, we haven't gotten that far into it, and we definitely aim to expand more into it now. So now Kishi will talk to us about our strategy.
So, with Mattel's current position in the industry as well as their future in mind, our strategy involves leveraging Mattel's expertise in creating engaging products to create an educational platform that serves as an alternative to textbooks in schools in the public, private, and home segments of the market. Our product is aimed at targeting or capitalizing off the short attention spans of kids, as well as the increase in demand for devices and digital experiences amongst them. A key part of our strategy are two sources of funding, which are Mattel's retained earnings for 2023 and 2024, as well as the projected investment in their existing brand, the Fisher-Price and Thomas & Friends brand line. So in 2024, Mattel is expected to put in $420 million back into the Fisher-Price and Thomas & Friends brand line, and we plan to take $110 million from the advertising and promotion expenses budgets of said brand line. In 2023 and 2024 respectively, Mattel is expected to generate a retained earnings of $3.56 billion and $4.8 billion in both years, and we plan to take 4% of each year, which will translate into $142 million in 2023 and $184 million in 2024. In total, that gives us $436 million to fund our research and development of the educational platform for the first 2 years between 2024 to 2025. be asking, why are we taking money exactly from the Fisher-Price and Thomas & Friends line? And you can see on the screen, for the past 7 years, from 2016 to 2022, Mattel's brand line hasn't been doing so well in revenue or sales. That's decreased a total of 512.4 million in total. And it wouldn't make sense for Mattel to continue putting extensive amount of resources as well as investment into the brand line when they could create a sustainable competitive advantage with this viable opportunity we have here. I'll then pass it on to Lexi to talk more about the game in depth.
So the educational game we're proposing a game called Mattel and Friends. There will be 6 different worlds with 6 different brands corresponding to 6 different school subjects, which I will get into on the next slide. And there will be 9 different versions, grades K through 8, each appropriately corresponding to the curriculum of each grade and appropriately challenging them. So the brands will be Whack-A-Mole for math, Hot Wheels for science, Scrabble for spelling, Reading for Apples to Apples, American Girl Doll will be social studies, and Barbie will be health. A few things to note about this is that spelling will become obsolete in 6th grade as there's less of a focus on spelling and more of a focus on essay writing and reading comprehension. So there will be more essay-focused questions and reading comprehension at this time. And then also Barbie will come into play in 6th grade, so it won't exist before then. We put it in the 6th grade platform onwards, and it will promote body positivity and body health for young children and their changing bodies. So an example of one of the versions, one of the worlds, and one of the subjects is the 1st grade Whack-A-Mole math will look something like this. So there will be an equation put on the board, 1 plus 4, for example, and then there will be answers, and the kid will have to pick one, and then they will be prompted to do so, and if they correctly pick the right answer, they will be able to hit the mole, and if they do not, they will be prompted to start again. So we hope to keep this engaging and fun for them to help them memorize and get used to addition and subtraction. So the education industry. So we aim to put ourselves as a replacement to textbooks. So a few things to note about the education industry with textbooks is that 25% of the US book publishing industry is actually textbooks, so it's second only to professional, technical, and scholarly books. It is a 10.5 billion segment of the industry. However, as of recently, the most recently documented time was $2.57 billion in 2018 to 2019, but there was a peak of 2016 to 2017 where they spent $2.76 billion. So it actually has decreased the textbook expenditure in the US, and which shows a lack of interest from public schools for these physical textbooks. However, as of the past school year, 2022 to 2023, there was 23% of students purchasing at least one digital textbook, which shows a trend towards more digitized forms of learning. So now I will pass it off to Ansley, who will talk about why we're choosing the education industry.
So you might be asking yourself, why should we do education? Why should we enter an industry that we haven't established ourselves in before? Well, we already are in the business of education. We educate through Barbie, who empowers children. Thomas & Friends teaches children courage. Bob the Builder teaches problem solving, and countless other instances where we have educated through fun. Now it's our time to become a notable education brand using this formula of educating through fun that we have generated. So now that I've explained how education works within our brand identity, I'll explain why we think there is so much potential in the education industry. Right now in the United States, education is apparently struggling. This is seen in the decreasing math and reading scores, specifically in our target segment of elementary and middle schoolers. According to a National Education Statistics assessment on 9-year-olds in 2022, the average reading assessment grade dropped 5 whole points from 2022 to 2020. That's the largest drop since 1990. And before 2022, math has never dropped. So we need to take this regression in skills as a sign that education is struggling, and we need to reassess how to connect with the students. And the first step is to figure out why education is struggling. So I'll pass it off to Connor, and he will explain to you why education is struggling.
So the average attention span for a 10-year-old is 20 to 30 minutes, with the average attention span of Americans when scanning the 8 seconds. So we can think about which of those two different attention spans kids are going to be closer to when they're listening to a teacher lecture or reading a dry textbook. Kids need something that can engage them and help them focus, and we can do that with modern technology. We see kids easily focusing in and being on their phones for hours at a time, and we can capture that same energy with Mattel and Friends and help them focus in on their learning. I'll pass it off to Ainsley to tell you a bit about our entry into the EdTech industry.
Okay, thank you, Connor. So there is huge potential in the EdTech industry right now, and it's projected to extremely grow. According to an industry analysis done by Business Fortune Insights, the market size right now is 134 billion, and it's projected to grow to 434 billion by 2030. So we are entering a $434 billion industry. And to further the good news, this takes place from now to 2030, and our 5-year implementation plan of Mattel and Friends takes place from now to 2028, perfectly aligning with each other, meaning we are entering the industry during a fantastic time. Another reason why we are entering the EdTech industry during a fantastic time is because online learning is proven to increase retention rates by 25 to 60%. So Mattel and Friends will act as a tool in the classroom to enhance retention rates and increase these decreasing test scores we've been talking about before. So now Connor will explain to you our positioning with our competition.
So our main competitors will be textbook companies like McGraw-Hill Education and Pearson. Both of them have different strategies for pricing their textbooks, and physical and online textbooks. McGraw-Hill prices from about $50 to $95, with the prices being on the higher end in later grades, while Pearson Education has a flat pricing for any year with a $160 course pack covering several subjects. Meanwhile, we will be pricing Mattel and Friends at $105 because we are covering several courses, so we're giving more content than McGraw-Hill while also having a lower price than Pearson Education and being more engaging than either of them will be. Passing it off to Ted.
Okay, so Annie and I will be explaining to you our marketing campaigns. In the education market, there are 3 main segments. There's public schools, private schools, and homeschooling segment. In these 3 segments, there's roughly 40 million students right now, K through 8 in the United States, and that's projected to go to 48 million by 2028. In the public schools, there's 33 million, private schools 3 million, homeschooling, there's roughly 4 million. The homeschooling segment is projected to become increasingly mainstream, increasing by 51% over the past 6 consecutive school years, outpacing the 7% growth seen in private schools enrollment. We took this segment's extreme growth into consideration as we divided up the strategies and the marketing budget. And we'll explain to you the public and private school campaigns, and I will explain to you homeschooling.
So marketing for public and private schools will look fairly different for marketing for homeschools, and this is because we are targeting different audiences that we want to reach. So for public and private schools, that would be the school boards and principals, and then for homeschool, it would be the parents. So how this will work is 6 months prior to the release of our game, we will be sending an email blast out to public and private schools in densely populated cities. And why we are choosing these cities is because the majority of students are found there. And why we're specifically choosing email blasts as our first form of communication is because looking at the statistic here, around 82.9% of email blasts are opened, and therefore we feel confident that our email blasts will be looked at. And within this email, we will introduce our product of Mattel and Friends to public and private schools, the school boards and principals, and then we will invite them to come to a pitch of our product where we will send a Mattel representative, to go to these major cities and present our product. We will do a walkthrough of the game, answer any questions they have, and really just make them feel confident in switching from textbooks to our product. After the pitch, we will offer a beta version of our game to private schools, and why we are specifically only offering this beta version to private schools is because private schools run like a business. They are highly competitive with other private schools, so we feel like they will give us the best feedback because they want to improve their students in order to have a large alumni that is very successful. So they will then give us advice on what we can change and fluctuate about our beta version, and then we will make those improvements based on that. And then in the second half of 2025, after the improvements are made, we will send out a free trial to the private schools that already tested the beta, as well as public and private schools that didn't get a chance to try the beta. And there's a statistic that around 67% of free trials, consumers that have tried a free trial then go on to buy the product, so we feel confident that this free trial will only help us succeed in generating revenue we need. And then from there, once the private and public schools test out this trial, they can then sign a contract that we will offer to ensure that we hit the revenue we need in order to make in that year of 2025. Now Ainsley will talk about homeschool marketing.
With such a niche market like the homeschooling community, our best strategy to connect with them is to utilize an already established, trusted, and successful source. A source that they turn to for advice already, and they already have an engaged community. And this source would be the Old Schoolhouse, the trade magazine for homeschool families. They offer a wide range of strategies for us to use, including e-blasts. More specifically, the dedicated e-blast, where we can send our email to 60,000 homeschooling recipients. That will cost around $8,000 for 6 of those e-blasts. Another e-blast option is the regional e-blast, where we can select states in the United States to send our e-blast to. So does anyone want to guess which state in the United States has the most concentrated homeschooling community?
Colorado.
No, it's more southern based. So it's North Carolina at the top, Florida, and Georgia. So we will send our e-blast to those states to get the most successful response. They also offer services in the social media realm of things. They have a whole program called the Homeschool Influencer Network. Packages for that range from $450 to $650. The Old Schoolhouse conducted a 6-month-long survey of the homeschooling segment post-COVID. The purpose of this survey was to collect statistics for companies like ourselves trying to market to this community and understand them better. They had a really successful turnout, and some of these statistics helped us figure out what strategies to use. One was that 97% of parents check their product reviews. So we will use a strategy called the free single review, where we will send our free trial to select homeschooling parents in exchange for their review. No one's going to buy Mattel and Friends if it's reviewless, so this is a crucial step. Another statistic that the survey gave us was that 60% of parents turn to blogs for advice and community. So we would hire a social media team that's cost around $4,000 to $7,000 a month, and we would make a Mattel homeschooling blog. This would be crucial because homeschooling students are more than students, it's a family and a lifestyle choice that they made, and we need to show that we understand their community and that we belong in it. So our campaign is gaining their trust, and that's what we will do. So Connor will now explain to you our 5-year plan.
Our plan over the next 5 years is to begin developing Mattel and Friends in 2024. In 2025, we're going to be moving to releasing the beta in the first half and making revisions, as well as in the second half of the year, beginning to promote Mattel and Friends to schools. So when we release the full game in 2026, our market will be more receptive to us and we will have more users. In 2027, we're going to be focusing on expanding in California and Texas because of their large number of schools. So we'll be able to get more customers. And in 2028, we'll focus on fixing any issues that have come up over the last 2 years since the release that weren't easily patched over, and making any major improvements that have gotten a significant amount of support from our enlarged consumer base. I'll be passing it off to Andy to talk about our pricing.
So as Connor mentioned earlier, we will be selling Mattel and Friends for a price of $105 per student. So how this will work is we will figure out how many students are in each school, and then we will send out logins to the school that they will then distribute to the students. And once the students have access to this login, they can really access the platform through any technological device. And why we are setting it at $105 is because Mattel and Friends is a premium product at a price that reflects the excellence towards McGraw-Hill, their competitors. So as you can see, McGraw-Hill ranges from $50 to $95 per course, $50 to $95 per textbook. So we are setting it at a higher price because we feel our Mattel and Friends is better than its competitors, and we also want to capitalize that it is more engaging than textbooks. So 3 out of every 10 students are not hitting the standardized test scores schools like to see, and we believe that Mattel and Friends will, Mattel and Friends engages students so they will be able to hit those test scores because it uses video game aspects that students are very focused on, and then it gives them the curriculum they need. Now, Kishi will explain the baseline.
So on the screen, we have the baseline projections from 2023 to 2028, as well as the historical averages for 2019 to 2022 of the common size values for each line of the income statement. The couple seconds to look at it. Okay, so I'd like to point your attention to the year 2023, highlighted in yellow. This is the estimated total revenue that Mattel is expected to generate by the end of the year. And this was gotten from the differences between the Q3 and the Q4 quarters, the revenue in the Q3 and the Q4 quarters of previous years, so 2022, 2021, and 2020. And we expect this 5.4 billion in revenue to grow to 8.53 billion over the next 5 years, with a CAGR, a compound annual growth rate of 9.5% each year. Another thing I'd like to point your attention to are the highlighted boxes in yellow. As you can see, some of these boxes, especially in the COGS as well as the operating expenses, are falling behind the 4-year averages, and this is because specifically in 2024 there are a lot of general elections occurring in countries where Mattel has a lot of prominent plants. For example, the US, Mexico, and China, and we expect that the newly elected officials in said countries would make changes in trade policies and taxation policies that might affect Mattel's global supply chain and distribution, and we expect those fluctuations to occur between 2024 to the end of 2026. By 2027 to 2028, we expect that those common size values return back to the historical averages. So, pass it over to Annie to continue talking about the financials.
Before we look at the strategy's income statement, I want to take a second to specifically look at where we will be spending our money in the operating expenses. So these are equipment costs, and then you can see it translates over to the game development. And I want to note that over the course of the years leading up to 2028, we will be expanding locations by region as we generate more revenue. So this number is only for 2024, however, it will increase as the years go on and we open those new locations. So before we look at the income statement, I want to draw your attention to these percentages in the top right. These are the projected revenue by segment percentages. And how we estimated these is we took the 40 million, as Ainsley spoke on, and the three segments combined, and we estimated that for public schools, it would be around 60% of our revenue would be coming from that 33 million students. And how we got to that number is public schools have significantly more students compared to the two other segments. However, there is not much lenience in the budget. Unlike private schools, they have significantly less students, but they have way more money in that segment. And then for homeschools, it's only 10% because it is hard to read how much money is in each household, and there is only 4 million students. Now, I want to take a look down here at the income statement. As you can see in 2028, based off those percentages, we have sales around 8.9%, and we do project that those percentages will be coming from the revenue. However, we think a majority of the percentages will be coming from the major cities, but since the release date was 2026, we believe now that our revenue is coming from smaller cities as well, such as Saratoga, or just more rural areas. Then I want to take a look at the operating expenses. As we mentioned, it is increasing a significant amount due to the new locations we have open. So by 2028, we estimate there will be around 3 locations. That's why the money has gone up so much. But we are able to afford that because we have been generating so much revenue. And then I also want to point out in 2025, there is a major increase in the cost of goods sold, and that is because of the beta testing and the improvements we are making. However, in the following years, it also increases because we will be making those improvements, as Connor mentioned. As you can see, this strategy will have a significant impact on Mattel in a very positive way. Now, Kishi will talk about the baseline and strategy.
So for the baseline projections as well as the segmented income statements previously discussed, this is the summary of the side-by-side comparison of the revenues for both the baseline and the strategy. In summary, we have the baseline Mattel generating 8.4 billion in revenue by 2028, and for our strategy, we have Mattel generating 9.4 billion in revenue. But the increase in revenue is not the only thing we bring to the table. The brand loyalty and recognition that Mattel gains from the families and the kids that have been impacted by the educational platform will translate into future potential sales for all of their products across their many brands. Thank you. And any questions are welcomed.
Okay, great. Have a seat. How long is it?